and welcome to this session on digital family learning, support and advice. My name is Laura McKechnie and I'm a biology and science teacher from Larbert High School, currently seconded out to the central team at Falkirk Council to work as an education support officer for Connected Falkirk. My main remit is digital learning, which includes running CLPL sessions for staff, live lessons for classes, and working one-on-one with teachers and schools to embed digital learning and technology into their curriculum. However, other parts of my remit broaden out to now include virtual learning, STEM, and family learning, which is what I'm here to speak to you about today. So what am I going to cover in this session? Well, hopefully you're watching this because you're interested in running a family learning project within your own setting. I hope that in this session I'll be able to give you some background to think about family learning and its purpose, give you some examples and ideas of family learning I've either took part in myself or pilots that I've helped to co-create and run over the past year or so, and speak about how I can support you in your setting to run your own programmes. I feel I should also mention at the start that as I speak about family learning, I may refer to parents, but I mean anyone with parental responsibilities and others who care or look after children and young people. Individual family units that I'm speaking about will comprise a wider range of people who might also contribute to a child's learning at home experiences, such as grandparents, kinship carers, foster parents, and aunts and uncles. So what is family learning? Well, the definition is quite contentious and I can't tell you how many Education Scotland and Scottish Government policies and documents that I've read that have said how family learning have been misunderstood. For example, HMI inspectors did a thematic analysis a few years ago of family learning, and the inspectors found a wide range of activities that were identified as family learning, but the majority of these were actually examples of parental engagement or involvement, or activity to support learning at home. To clarify this, parental involvement is the way in which parents can get involved in the life and work of the ELC or school, which can involve activities such as parent councils and parent representation in the development of policies or key decisions. Parental involvement can also include helping with homework or keeping track of children's work and ongoing two-way communication between home and school. Parental engagement is about parents and families' interactions with their child's learning, and this can take place in the home, at school, or in the community. Family learning recognises the role of a parent as the child's first educator and engages them to learn together with a key focus on intergenerational learning. This can be focused on a number of different areas such as literacy, numeracy, languages, health and well-being, science and more, anything which helps them to build capacity as a family. So why would we want to do family learning? Well, it's woven into a number of key policies and frameworks, and you can see the connections here with Curriculum for Excellence and other frameworks such as the NIF, and basically it's just a small cog as well in working towards things like closing the attainment gap and raising attainment for all. But aside from this, it also has a number of potential benefits. Education Scotland say that learning outcomes and benefits resulting from family learning can be categorised into 5 main areas: them developing new skills, increased confidence and understanding, improved communication, changed behaviours and changed relationships with the setting and family. But more specifically, they can also include other things like fostering more positive attitudes within families towards lifelong learning. Family learning can also lead to stronger home learning environments. They can positively impact on young people's aspirations. And it's also been shown that an early intervention and prevention approach works in reaching families from disadvantaged backgrounds to improve their life chances. It can be a catalyst in helping adults take up adult learning and training opportunities or gain employment and or attain new skills. An example of this is a family learning programme that my friend and colleague ran at Larbert High School, where parents learned Nat 5 maths alongside their child and sat the exam at the end of the year. So they also gained that qualification as well. It can also help parents build confidence in helping their children at home and be more involved in their child's schooling. And it can also be nice for parents to see their child in a positive light within their school and with the staff and get that opportunity to more informally mix with other parents and educators. So we'll talk about this more in a second when I go through the timeline of how I suggest that you plan your family learning programme, but these are the key features of high quality family learning that Education Scotland have highlighted. One of these, trusted relationships, is why it's important that I can't run in and just come in and run a family learning session for you and for your parents, but I can be there to support. Families are more likely to engage and stay engaged in family learning when they have a trusting relationship with those who facilitate that learning, which is why it's important to get buy-in from staff within your establishment. Other key features include any family learning being inclusive and responsive to the needs of families, whilst minimising where possible any barriers that exist to their participation. Carefully planning those projects and programmes, and also making sure the achievements of families involved are recognised through celebrating their success. And you'll see this a lot in our pilot projects that I'll speak about soon. So to spark some ideas and give you some examples, just over a year ago I sent an email out to all schools in Falkirk asking if anyone wanted to plan some family learning sessions that embedded digital learning and if they wanted some support. I then worked with these schools to design 4 projects that were co-created and ran, and I'll speak through them just now, a little bit briefly. All of the resources from these sessions will be made freely available to schools to pick up and use and adapt if they want to, and I'm currently in the process of creating a family learning blog site to host all of these, which I'll link in the description for this video if needed. Now, one caveat is that these were all primary based, because it was all primaries that volunteered initially, but I'm really excited to work with any secondary schools or ELCs that also are watching this and then want to get involved and do some family learning within their setting. So the first project was based around internet safety. I worked with Lauriston Primary to create a one-off session, which was then refined and given to Simungo's RC cluster schools to use for their own internet safety project that they were collaborating on. This was a second level programme aimed at P6s or P7s and involved families being invited in to join their child in the assembly hall to start. We did a quick introduction on internet safety by showing a video from the Safer Internet Day site, and then completed an interactive Mentimeter activity on the children's one-to-one iPads. We then split into classes and the children took their parents back to their own classroom to do the rest of the session. The second half was a mixture of 4 different activities and families could work at their own pace through them using a variety of apps which you can see here. One activity got them to use Padlet to name something for each of the letters A to Z that they enjoyed about going online. Another one called Mini Milestones got them to use keynotes to position milestones on a long line based on the average age that children and young people might experience them. This one was really interesting to see if the young people and their parents disagreed. Another was a quizzes quiz about how well they knew each other. Parents worked through the quiz and had to decide what they thought their child would do in each situation or scenario that was described, and then they discussed the answers with one another. Finally, there was another keynote activity where families had to rank the issues from those that posed the highest to the lowest risk for children and young people their age. Another school then took this set of activities and also got in touch with a STEM ambassador to come in and do the introductory speech at the start of the session. Our next 3 pilots were all at Larbert Village Primary, as they were very keen to work with us to design a family learning opportunity at each level, one for early, first and second level last year. The first project was for early level and focused on claymation. The class teachers had both run clay modelling sessions in the past and wanted a way to build this skill into family learning with a digital twist. We had 21 P1 families take part and had to cap the sessions because we had so many parents, grandparents and other family members that wanted to attend. They attended for 1 hour each Wednesday for 3 weeks, and this was in the last hour of the school day so that children could then leave with their parents on the bell, which helped families attend. In the first session we used their iPad to mark up and create storyboards for their planned film and gave them some basic clay to start practising to see what shapes they could create to help with inspiration. In the second session, they built their clay characters and scenes and started to film their stop-motion animation movies using the stop-motion app on their iPad. This was really easy for them to use, and the school's P7 pupil digital leaders were also there to lend a hand. In the third and final session, they finished making their movies and then each got to show their films on the big screen in the assembly hall using the Apple TV. This allowed them to celebrate each other's creations. You can see one of these creations here, and remember as you're watching this that this was a P1 pupil that thought all of this up and designed and created it. You can see some of the feedback here from the families. I was honestly so proud of all of the wonderful films that they made. They were so creative and it turned out even better than I could have imagined. A lot of the families had never modelled with plasticine before, and I think all of them had never used a stop motion app before. It was lovely to hear that lots were going to go away and try out their new skills together on other projects at home. Our first level family learning project at Larbert Village was on outdoor learning. This topic was chosen because the teacher who was keen to run it again already had a passion for outdoor learning, so we wanted to try and harness that. Again, this was 3 afternoon sessions that were slightly longer to allow time to walk to the forested area. More than 20 families took part as well. We called it Welly Wednesday and created a selection of 5 different badges, digital badges that they could earn, just like in Scouts or Guides. For each badge, there was a set of instructions and a video to show them how to use the tools on the iPad that they needed to complete it, along with an extension activity if they got done quickly. And you can see this on the right-hand side. One example of this was den building. So they were asked to build as big a den as possible using natural materials in the forest and use the Measure app on their iPad to measure its dimensions. They could then see who made the biggest one. The extension activity was then to take a photo of the inside of their den and mark it up almost like little interior designers to make the inside suitable for their purpose. We also hope that any children or families that couldn't attend either all or any of the sessions, they could use that online booklet at home and they could still take pictures, show their teacher and get badges as well, so they weren't left out because they couldn't attend. This is an example of the Keynote scavenger hunt for one of the badges. So they opened this up on their device in Keynote and then had to do various tasks using the built-in features on the device, like using a record feature to record some natural sounds in the environment, or using the magnifier to take a close-up photo of a bug. There was also tasks that made them use the Measure app or Markup to do other tasks in the outdoors and evidence them all on one Keynote presentation, which then could be easily shared with their teacher. Over the next 3 weeks, the class teacher kept a track of who had completed each badge, and we created a Canva page online to celebrate their successes. Each family received a link to the Canva page, and then they basically had to find their own welly boot, which you can see on the right-hand side, and when they clicked on it, it took them to their backpack, which you can see on the left, and this had all of the different badges that they'd earned on it. After 3 weeks, they then received a digital certificate, which you can see in the bottom. Our final pilot at Larbert Village was for second level, and this was over 2 sessions with 8 P6 and 3 P7 families looking at STEM coding. This is the project that I had the smallest input on, as Laura Robinson, the class teacher, had already run a similar family learning project before, but she kindly agreed to give me these materials to share with others. In the first session, the families learnt to use block code in Scratch to develop animations and games, and then in the second session they coded the Sphero bolts, which are little spherical robots which link to the iPads. Laura borrowed these from the Library Resource Service. The bolts can be controlled using block coding with instructions involving movement, lights and sounds, allowing the families to apply their knowledge to code the robots to perform different tasks. They then finished the session with a game of 10-pin bowling, where families competed to basically try and knock down as many bottles as they could by coding their bolts with instructions for speed, direction and length of travel, which was a really nice way to celebrate what they'd learned over the 2 sessions. The feedback from Laura's STEM session was incredible, and you can see the before and after snapshots here. This highlights the importance of thinking carefully about how you're going to evaluate your programme from the start. You can see both parents and pupils increase their confidence in coding skills in these graphs. And you can see here that both of them are now much more knowledgeable about why we taught coding in primary schools. And these were the aims of Laura's project, to increase confidence in coding and to make sure that both pupils and parents were aware of the importance of learning about code in primary. And here's some lovely quotes about what the parents and pupils enjoyed the most. They highlighted that they loved learning together, but also that a lot of the children and families just enjoy getting to spend some quality time together, as well as learning a new thing and doing something fun. So after all of that, what tips and tricks would I give you to build your own successful family learning project? I know some of you who'll be watching this have done lots of projects already, and others will not have done one before. So we're just going to start from the beginning, and I'll try and tell you things that we've learned over the last little while through running these projects. So first, I would suggest thinking very, very carefully about your aims. What do you want the parents, grandparents or carers to get out of attending? And what do you want the children to get out of it too? If you have a clear idea of these aims in your head before you do anything else and keep them in mind throughout, this will make it easier to evaluate impact but also to plan your project effectively. Do you want the parents to get a qualification? Maybe, for example, you might want to do a first aid course where both the pupils and parents get the qualification for it. Do you want the whole family to get an award like a Crest Award or a John Muir Family Award? Do you want to tackle something that's part of your school improvement plan? That's a really, really good place to start. Is there something like literacy or numeracy or STEM, something that you need to work on as a school? We'll make it a topic of family learning for this year if it's something that is niggling you. So there's also maybe other things that might be niggling you that you'd like to tackle. So maybe your aim is to try and involve more male parental figures in school engagement. There's been lots of family learning projects that have been done elsewhere that have focused on bringing in dads, granddads, uncles, etc. to school to specifically work with children on areas like literacy and reading. And these have been really, really successful. Next, you need to brainstorm ideas, or maybe you've got some in mind already. Maybe your parent council could help come up with ideas for you. You know your setting and context best, so use this knowledge to help design projects that support your families effectively. I would suggest at this point, almost combining it with stage 3. So what resources do you have that you could draw on? Maybe you have a member of staff you think would be keen to run family learning. What are their strengths? Do they have something they'd be really confident in delivering? What are their skills and interests? You could draw on these if this is the first time you're doing a programme like this, because that will make it a bit easier. When I ran family learning when I was teaching at Larbert, I focused on the National 5 biology assignment because this was an area I was leading on anyway in the school and trying to make improvements in. Families came in for 3 weeks and we designed and planned an experiment and wrote it up as a mock assignment. We then marked them together and taught the parents what their child needed to be able to do for their assignment, which was 20% of their final grade. And this allowed them to give them more support at home for it. Apart from staffing resources, you also need to think about what other resources do you have or need. Larbert Village had a nice outdoor space for outdoor learning. They also brought in lots of plasticine for claymation. Laura had already booked the spheros from the Library Resource Service to use with her classes that month. In technical terms, you also need to think about how many iPads will you need if it's P1 to 5 who aren't 1-to-1. Make sure you can pull your shared ones or use your school ones to give enough for each family. Also have a think, do you need an app? Is it downloaded on all those devices that you're planning to use, or could you use something that's already built in? Think about the barriers as well and how you're going to solve them. This can include things like timings. What time of year would be best to run your family learning project? Are there any pinch points for staff and pupils? Do you need good weather? When would be best in the day or evening to run it? In primary, there seems to be a preference for during the school day, at the start or end of the day. In secondary, we seem to have more success in the evenings. It could also be that there's barriers to participation, such as parents' own negative experiences of education, low levels of literacy and numeracy issues, or maybe even just having childcare issues. So would you let them bring along a sibling, for example? Do you have enough space for that? Make that really clear on all of your communications. Then refine and plan, and I can help with that. Think carefully about how you're going to evaluate and get feedback. How are you going to deliver the project or programme? I know that all the different family learning programmes will all vary in length, format and delivery. So would you like to run it online or in person? I've delivered online ones before and they do work really, really well. Usually it helps more people to be able to attend and you're not limited by things like space. But on the other hand, some people sometimes like to basically come along in person so that they get that informal time to chat with yourself and also with other parents, etc. How long is your programme going to run for? Is it going to be just a one-off session or is it going to be over a few weeks? How long does each session need to be? And what time of year is going to be best? Is it going to be project-based? Do they need to take something away to do each week or at the end? And are there any potential partners that you could bring in to help you? Communication's also vitally important. How are you going to communicate with families? Is it going to be through emails, leaflets, which go in school bags? That can work quite well sometimes in primary. Posters? When were you going to communicate it as well? You need to make sure that you give them enough time, but you also don't want it to be too far away from the event so that they forget about it or end up having other things that come up which mean they miss it. Will you have a maximum capacity? Will you have a waiting list? Are you going to target specific families or is it going to be a universal offer? Sometimes making it universal helps to reduce stigma, but you could also make it universal and try and target specific families and encourage them to sign up. Then it's the easy bit. You just need to run the project. But always think about how many members of staff will you realistically need, and would it be good for them to be able to collaborate together to come up with a session? Will you want to use any pupil digital leaders? Are they able to stay after school? What if someone's off sick? What is the contingency plan? Finally, make sure you have a way to evaluate and celebrate success for your project, as that's one of the key features from the high quality family learning infographic. Will you have a sharing session? Will you have posters, certificates, posts on social media, praise postcards? You need to have a think through this and try and make sure you've planned this before your sessions begin. Now, one big thing I still need to talk about is how can I support you? Well, there are some essential criteria for this, and I just want to make it very, very clear from the onset. If you want support for your project from Connected Falkirk, your project must make use of Connected Falkirk devices somewhere within it. They don't need to be the main thing. It doesn't need to be a digital family learning project, but it should be a project where we can use the devices effectively to enhance the experience. If you have an idea for a project and aren't sure how you're going to do this, just get in touch and I'll help brainstorm some ideas with you. The second criteria is the project must be led by staff in your setting who are happy to co-create the resources and run the sessions. I love helping to make resources, but I can't make everything for everyone. I also have a very tight diary, so whilst I'd love to come along to each session and will try to do my best to do this isn't always possible. So whoever is in charge of your project must be happy to run the events as if I wasn't there, or if I can only come for basic support. I can't unfortunately lead the sessions. The final criteria is they need to be a family learning project or programme, not just parental engagement or involvement like we spoke about before. If your project meets these criteria and you'd like our support, I'm happy to provide advice and support during the planning stages, from brainstorming right the way through to evaluating impact, and I can help you or your selected staff to co-create resources and plan session delivery. In return, all that I ask is that I can share the resources and feedback through a case study after the project is complete, so that other schools can learn about your experience and success and get some more ideas. If you're interested, please scan the QR code and fill in the form. Here are just some final questions to have a think about before you go off to plan your project. Think about what family learning programmes do you already run? Could these be repeated and enhanced, or do you want to start from scratch with something new? What resources do you have that you can draw on? What barriers might the families who are going to attend have, and how can you minimise them? And what are your aims for your programme? Thank you so much again for taking the time to watch today's session on family learning, advice and support. I really genuinely hope that it's useful, and please don't hesitate to get in touch with me on either my Twitter or my email address, which are on the screen, if you have any questions at all or I can be of any help in any way. Thank you so much.